Hey everybody. In this training, we're going to talk about Genesee County workplace harassment. We will be covering the policies for harassment, what harassment is, who can be affected, and then how you would report. We're going to talk about 3 different types of harassment. The first type of harassment is discriminatory harassment. Discriminatory harassment is targeting an individual specifically because of something that they can't necessarily help, such as their race or their religion or color or sex or maybe a disability, age. The age for discriminatory harassment is over 40. But basically, we don't want to target anyone or pick on anyone. We should be encouraging each other and being very respectful of each other at all times. Sexual harassment policy. This is a second type of harassment we're going to discuss. Sexual harassment is defined by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission as unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other physical or verbal conduct of a sexual nature when submission to such conduct is made, either explicitly or implicitly, a term or condition of an individual's employment. Submission to or rejection of such conduct by an individual is used as a basis for employment decisions affecting such individual, or such conduct has the purpose or effect of unreasonably interfering with an individual's work performance or creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive working environment. The third type of harassment we're going to discuss is called retaliatory harassment. Retaliatory harassment is retaliation against an employee who either files a complaint for harassment or serves as a witness in the investigation. Retaliatory harassment, just like discriminatory harassment, sexual harassment, can lead to disciplinary action up to and including discharge. So harassment has to fall under one of those 3 categories. It either has to be discriminatory harassment, sexual harassment, or retaliatory harassment. But it also has to meet one of these 2 criteria. It has to be one serious incident or several small consistent incidents that reasonable people would consider intimidating, hostile, abusive, or that it would alter their conditions of employment. Now let's look at some different forms of harassment. The first form is nonverbal, which means it's not something you say, it's something you do, such as staring at someone, making them uncomfortable, looking a person up and down, intentionally blocking them from going somewhere that they are planning on going, making sexual gestures with your hands or with your body through body movements. The next form is verbal. So this is something you say. It's sexual jokes or stories or sexual comments about someone's bodies, turning discussions into sexual topics, asking people personal questions about their social life or their sexual life, things of that nature. Some other examples: social media, screensavers, pictures on your phone, handwritten notes, anything like that. During work hours, after work hours, when you're at work, all your work should be appropriate. Everything you say and do should be appropriate for a professional atmosphere. So who can be affected by harassment? It does not have to be the person that the conversation or action or joke is directed at. Say you and a friend are talking about your personal lives, or maybe you're telling a joke that is inappropriate for work. Someone else hears it and they're affected by it. Maybe they find it super offensive. Well, they could file a complaint against you. Everyone has a different tolerance level. Sometimes things that don't bother you will bother someone else depending on how they were raised or what environment they grew up in. If someone says something or does something that's unappreciated to you, unacceptable to you, offensive to you, please tell them to stop. Or if you're uncomfortable, with that face-to-face conversation, go ahead and talk to your supervisor. Supervisors have been trained that they are to address that issue. If someone tells you to stop something that you're doing, take that seriously and stop. If you don't stop, it could affect your employment. So here's some scenarios that I want to talk through, and we're just going to talk about, does this qualify as harassment? Every day, as soon as you go on break, your coworker needs your help with something. And when you don't help him, he tells your boss and tries to make you look bad. Is that harassment? Well, the first thing that you want to do is you're going to want to think back. Is it discriminatory? No. Is it sexual harassment? No. Is it retaliation? No. Looks like your coworker just likes to do things to get you in trouble. And sometimes we run across people in life and people in work that will do something like that. But that wouldn't qualify as harassment. Next bullet. You were late getting a report to your boss. The client is angry and so is your boss. This is the first time it's ever happened, but now you're in trouble. She calls you in her office and she raises her voice at you. Is this harassment? Well, it's not discriminatory. Your boss isn't mad at you for something that you can't help, such as your race or your gender. She's upset with you because of the circumstances. Is this sexual harassment? No. Is this retaliatory harassment? No. Sometimes bosses get upset. Sometimes they're stressed out. But just because a boss raises their voice doesn't mean that they're harassing you. Next bullet. Every week, your 22-year-old coworker sends an email to the whole office with a joke about people that are over 50. The latest one was about how all those baby boomers need hearing aids. So let's look at this one. Is it discriminatory? Well, you're talking about people that are over 40, over 50 in this instance. So yes, that would be considered discriminatory. So we have to look at the next qualifier. Is this very serious, or is it happening on a consistent basis? Well, it's happening every week. Since it's happening every week, this is on a consistent basis. So something like this would qualify for harassment. Hopefully this 50-year-old has addressed it with this younger coworker that it bothers them, and that instance stops immediately. If not, then there needs to be some intervention. I also want to point out that it doesn't have to be a younger person that could harass someone who's over 40. Even someone over 40 could harass someone else over 40. But the age for age discrimination is over 40 years old. A couple more to look at. First bullet. Your boss has suggested, but not in so many words, that if the two of you were to develop a relationship outside of work, promotion, bonuses, or maybe other benefits would come your way. Is this harassment? Well, let's look at it. Is it discriminatory? I don't see anything in there that points to it being discriminatory without knowing other facts. Is it sexual harassment? Yes, this would qualify as sexual harassment because your boss is using a situation where he has power over you to try to make you believe that he could do something for you in exchange for a relationship. That is something that you would definitely want to speak to someone about, and you'll learn in a couple minutes it won't have to be that supervisor. Next bullet. An employee makes an inappropriate joke one day in the office. Everyone hears it. Is this harassment? Okay. Here we know that it's probably not discriminatory, but it may be. We don't know what the joke is to be able to discuss that in great detail. Maybe it's sexual. We don't know that. But it's obviously inappropriate. It happened just one time, though, and unless it was something very serious, this would not be cause for a harassment investigation. Although it is something that we would want someone to tell this person to knock it off, either the person that heard it or the supervisor. I mean, we're all in this together, so if anyone hears something that's inappropriate, please just tell the person to knock it off. Next, we're going to look at a quick video. This video will give you an understanding of how to use a filter at work and how to keep it appropriate at work. We call this using the grandma filter.
On the surface, reaction 3, I am who I am, take it or leave it, is an honest, straightforward way to live. But does that mean you never change your behavior? You never edit what you say or do to avoid offending others?
Oh, yes! Son of a... Big gorilla!
Most of us instinctively adjust our behavior to fit our surroundings. We filter what we say and do. Most of us.
George was a much greatly admired friend of all.
Hello. Oh, hey, what's up with you? What?
Missing him dearly.
Oh, no, nothing really. It's just a family thing, no big deal.
We all know people who are missing some critical social filters. They seem to be unaware of where they are or who they are with.
Are you kidding? I don't know half these people. Okay, yeah.
Whatever pops into their head comes straight out of their mouth. Filters are a natural part of life as a social human being. At work, these same filters are the key to putting our sexuality on hold and showing respect to others. For example, let's say you think someone you work with would enjoy a suggestive cartoon or email. Before you send it, ask yourself, would I send this to my grandma? This is appropriately called the grandma filter. Or let's say you think someone you work with looks particularly attractive one day. Rather than offering a suggestive remark about your coworker's body, ask yourself, how would I compliment my grandma?
That's a pretty outfit.
Oh, thank you, sweetheart. It was on sale.
See how it works? Compliment someone's fashion, not their body. Or better yet, compliment their work rather than their appearance. When in doubt, ask yourself,
would you say that to your grandma?
If the answer is no, don't say it,
Don't send it.
or do it. Because you know better.
you are who you are. Maybe you can't control how you think, but with your grandma filter, you have complete control over how you interact with others at work.
Okay, so that video kind of shows you, to keep your comments about people's clothing to yourself, about their bodies to yourself, and to be careful what you're saying out loud. Use a filter for things that are inappropriate at work. Before you say or do something, check yourself. Think about it. Is this something that I would want anyone to hear? Would I be embarrassed if my parents heard it? If my spouse or if my kids heard it? My boyfriend or girlfriend? Or would they be not happy with me about that? If they wouldn't be happy with it, then don't say it. Also, many times things you say or do can affect your employment. Is this worth losing your job over? Okay, so hopefully by now you know enough about what harassment is, that you've made up your mind that you're not going to be a part of it. But maybe you find yourself in a situation where you feel that you are being harassed. If that's the case, make sure you go over in your head which type of harassment that is. Is it discriminatory harassment? Are you being targeted because of your age or your gender or your race? Things that you can't help. Or if you were a different race, age, gender, would this person not be saying those things? If so, you may have a case of harassment. But also remember that it has to be either one serious incident or several consistent incidents. If that's the case, then you'll need to know how to report harassment. So potential harassment should be reported to a supervisor, department head, or to human resources. Harassment's one thing that you don't have to follow the chain of command on, although we like you to go through the chain of command if it's possible. It's just easier that way for us to know who had it and where it goes, where the complaint goes next. Employees can either verbally report the incident or they can fill out a complaint form. Complaint forms are located on the Genesee County website, gc4me.com, under forms. Or you can verbally report the incident to your supervisor. The supervisor should write it down immediately and have you sign it to make sure that what the supervisor's hearing and what you're saying is the same. Or you can send an email, or you can write it down on a piece of paper. Any of those forms of reporting are acceptable. I prefer email because it has the date and time on it. Just be sure to follow up to make sure that your boss or whoever you're emailing got the report, to make sure that there wasn't any problem with it going through or maybe the wrong email address. So I just make sure that I follow up on that. Okay. So maybe you've made a complaint and you're wondering, why isn't there an investigation? Remember, not every instance that's reported qualifies. Again, supervisors are trained to look at each complaint individually and decide if it is actually harassment. Again, it has to meet a certain threshold. So you filed a harassment complaint. What happens now? Well, the potential harassment will be addressed. If an investigation's done after it's completed, we will make a decision regarding what evidence we found in the investigation. If the allegations are true, the harasser will either be warned, counseled, disciplined, or maybe terminated as necessary, depending on the situation, depending on the severity of the harassment. And a plan of action will be put in place to prevent further harassment or retaliation. Supervision will monitor the situation just to make sure that the harassment doesn't fire up again in a month or so. So you might be thinking, what can you do to help prevent harassment? Just stop and think about what you might say, stop and think about what you might do, and just strive to operate professionally. Because a workplace free of harassment creates a positive working environment for all employees.